Well, the phrase that you used, good empirical practices,
Hmm.
I think helps us start to shift into our objectives for today, which is to kind of bring things all together and help people to understand how they can get, own, and leverage leader to business impact analytics. And so, what is this healthy, elegant, empirical practice that we've really been trying to talk about and put together over several Rejuvi 45 sessions? Let's kind of head there.
Yeah.
And you started to mention some of these phrases, and I want to kind of bring them out again. We're going to focus on the third a lot more today, but
Yep.
we just can't say these things enough, because at the end of the day, what it represents is what you just said, which is a really healthy empirical practice
Hmm.
for leadership to business impact analytics. So, for those of you joining in today, our shorthand at Rejuvi for these three things is Mufasa 1, Mufasa 2, Mufasa 3. And we use the word Mufasa because we're Lion King fans,
Right.
and Mufasa is the great patriarch of the Lion King family, and so it really has helped us to start to tell this story, through our marketing and through social media. And we always have a lion associated with it, aka the big roar, and all
Yeah.
things point to Mufasa. So, we have this story that fits together: Mufasa 1, Mufasa 2, Mufasa 3. And Mufasa 1 is about great leadership bringing prowess to analytics. And we told that story inside of For the Greater Good. And in kind of summary, Vid, what is that Mufasa 1, or great leadership bringing prowess to analytics, all about in your mind?
Yes, and we did talk about it a little bit, a little
Mm-hmm.
bit today as well, right? So the whole Mufasa one, or great leadership brings prowess to analytics. It's really summarizing our point of view, about the fact that exceptional leadership, right, brings decisioning and directioning prowess needed to make the most of analytics. And that's the idea here. And you talked about it. You said that, hey, when you look at that think to drive continuum, we know that, leadership development is tied to great business outcomes, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a middle step. It's not happening by magic. Well, we all like to believe that's happening by magic because you just put the right person in place and all of a sudden business grows. It's actually the exact opposite. The right person is really the person that we believe, a leader who has that, excellence developed, within them.
Mm-hmm.
And they've honed that skill
Right.
either by paying attention to it themselves and doing a self teach, right? Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
touch this hot thing, it burns. I touch this cold thing, it doesn't burn. So I'm going to keep touching the cold thing more.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I'd say
Yes.
90% of great leaders out there who were developed over time basically followed that process. They were
Mm-hmm.
astute, they were paying attention, they were present, and they really understood. So that learning model for them was so internalized and so sharpened that they were really exceptional at it.
Mm-hmm.
What you've taught me in the time that we worked together, over the past 7-8 years, and what I've learned as we've kind of developed the Rejuvi process is that it doesn't have to be by chance,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's right.
It doesn't have to be by
That's right.
chance. It can be by design. And that's the idea here. So to me,
Mm-hmm.
Mufasa 1 is saying you develop that directioning and decisioning prowess first. And
Mm-hmm.
guess what? When you do that, that takes care of the analytics prowess because they know what questions to ask because they're
That's
paying
exactly
attention to what
right.
drives the business. So
Yeah,
that to me is
totally,
Mufasa one.
totally agree. When we told that story in For the Greater
Yep.
Good. When we held a session in December, we had a session called Norming Makes Me Storming. And it was all about analytics bringing prowess to leadership. And we call
Mhm.
this the Mufasa 2 story. And so, as I look back on the summary of that particular session, I think in summary, what I would say is the leadership space forever has struggled with putting metrics to its work. We
Right.
don't know how to understand the impact of interventions that we deliver to our organization. And we don't always know how to get after in an empirical way questions that might be posed to us by the partners inside of our organization. If they say to us, what do we know about the things that we might need to get after in order to impact turnover inside of our company from a leadership perspective? We don't know how to get after that empirically. And so Mufasa 2, or what we say is analytics brings prowess to great leadership, really introduced the notion of a simple input process output model to those inside of our practice. We call it the IPO, input process output, the IPO highway. And we've used this multiple times here, and helping those inside of the leadership development practice start to think about the input as attributes, healthy, empirically based attributes that define excellence for all types of leaders, because they're going to look different for different types of leaders.
That's right.
What your input is for your team leaders will be same and different than your input for your service leaders.
Correct.
What your input is for your service leaders will be same and different than your input for your sales leaders, and then on to your senior leaders. But you take that input and the attributes, right? The attribute level evidence, and you put it through a analytic process so that it can start to inform your other types of evidence, your outcome-based evidence, right? That's the IPO highway, and you need to kind of get this set up. And it was this major story that we told. We call it Mufasa 2, but it's all about analytics bringing prowess to great leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I would build on that, I was actually having this conversation with, I shall not name names, but I was having a conversation with a CHRO recently on this topic about empirical, evidence and tying outcomes to leadership development. And the pushback that I got when I made that comment was when I understood the pushback. I think the pushback was, oh no, we have metrics. And really, when we got to the end of the conversation, what we agreed on was, yes, we do have metrics, but they're very, very limited to two things today. Those two things are, how do I retain high-performing employees, and how do I increase the engagement of my employees? That's it. Those are the two metrics that leadership development ties to within organizations after the 60, 50 years of investments, right? That's it. And we went back and forth, and we were talking, but it was a good conversation, right? It was a healthy conversation. And those were the two. I think the point that coming out of that to me was, you cannot limit a business outcome to just two things, because a business is made up of many, many more things. And how do you tie leadership development explicitly to many things beyond attrition of high performing employees and increasing engagement of your employee base? Do you see what I'm saying, Reg? And that's where I think that's where the Mufasa 2 comes into play for us, and why we have such a point of passion on this and really strong point of view that you have to build that IPO highway. You know why? Because there are more metrics to be had, and there is more outcome to be had for all the investment that's happening as we speak today. You don't have to do a thing extra, right? You just take what you have, what you're doing today, and just build on it.
Yeah, I think this is not only a really good take on Mufasa 2, analytics bringing prowess to great leadership, but it's a way for us to transition nicely into Mufasa 3, which we haven't talked as much about.
Yep.
But you know what? But I do want to bring things together here, because people are paying attention to this, and so you were visiting with a CHRO, and they're talking about a couple of metrics, and the way that I took that in, Vid, was also those are outcomes. But we typically think of the evidence over here on the outcome in the outcome piece of the IPO highway as threefold. They have to be people outcomes or people metrics, number one. Number two, it has to be operational metrics and
Correct.
outcomes, number two. And it has to be value-based outcomes and metrics, number three.
Right.
So that CHRO is only dabbling in two pieces of
Just two
one
things at the
third of the outcome
eh,
box.
bingo.
And so I think that as I listen to that, it's a way for us to push into Mufasa 3.
Yeah.
And so let me do that. And I'm going to actually pull back another really interesting line from our fence post today. But Mufasa 3 is all about leadership to business impact analytics. It's about figuring out how to get it, to own it, and to leverage it for a fully operational highway. It is Mufasa 1 plus Mufasa 2 gets you to Mufasa 3, right?
Right.